talking to all morning say that's not good enough. They and even some Republicans say they would like to hear the majority leader use stronger language, make a commitment, make a promise to deal with this in public that they can hold to. But it's unclear exactly what's going to happen in the next hour. This is not a common situation up here where we're an hour from a major vote. We don't know how it's going to break. But if the Democrats do not vote here to reopen the government, things are going to get a little bit more difficult for them politically for a couple of reasons. They're going to lose some cover. Jeff Flake and Lindsey Graham, who voted with Democrats to shut down the government late Friday night, say they're going to vote to reopen it today. This has been good enough for them. Secondly, this is a noon vote in the middle of the day on a work day done in full public view. This isn't happening in the middle of the night, and it isn't happening over the weekend. This is going to make all of this feel a lot more real for a lot of people if the vote fails to reopen the government. Now, talking about the negotiations that are ongoing here, one of the central players has been Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, doing some shuttle diplomacy, going back and forth. He's one of the people who's trying to convince Democrats that Mitch McConnell's word is good enough. Here's what he said earlier this morning about how he sees this immigration debate and the rest of the issues in contention right now playing out going forward.
Here's what I predict. Once we start talking about immigration and voting on immigration, we'll find 60 votes to make sure these DACA recipients' lives are not ruined by March 5th.
You've got Graham there saying this will all come together if we can take this first step and reopen the government. He has been in the room with Democratic senators all weekend long, but as of right now, less than an hour from this vote, it's still not clear if that's good enough.
But Garrett, let's stay on that, because to your point, Lindsey Graham has been in the room with Democrats all weekend long, and it was Lindsey Graham who worked with Dick Durbin 2 weeks ago on a potential DACA deal, and it was the president who stood in the way. So while I can understand how Democrats might not trust the president, how Mitch McConnell even this weekend said he didn't know what position the president was going to take, how Republicans might not trust the president, but can't the government leaders work together? Because there could be some form of trust between them. They've been working together for decades, long before Trump got into the mix.
Oh, absolutely. There's an interesting dynamic here of almost managing up that's going on from this bipartisan group that's been meeting all weekend. The 20 or so, maybe 24 senators who've been meeting every day say they trust each other. They trust this group. They trust each other's intentions. The problem is that as this sort of floats its way up into the leadership ranks and eventually towards the White House, that's where the trust falls apart. So after these meetings break up, these groups go back to their respective leaders and say, here's what we talked about. Here's what we think can get done. And so far at the leadership level, that hasn't translated into anything. I'm setting aside the White House here completely because the scope of these conversations does seem to have narrowed. This is senators talking about the Senate doing its own work. They realize now, I think, that they're not going to get what they want out of the White House in terms of the scope of the conversation that we're having about the government reopening and about getting to work on an actual immigration deal.
Getting to work. All right, Garrett, I'm going to let you